From the director that Tom Cruise brought us in Top Gun Maverick, and the actors that Tom Cruise brought us in Interview with the Vampire and Collateral, comes a new movie about the sport that Tom Cruise brought us in Days of Thunder. Yes, I know that's NASCAR. Close enough. In F1, Brad Pitt plays aging Formula One driver Sonny Hayes, who gets pulled out of retirement to mentor a hotshot rookie. It's like Cars, but everyone's hotter and swears more, and nobody's a car. Anyway, legendary driver Sonny Hayes is coaxed out of retirement to help revive the worst Formula One team. It's Ted Lasso with downforce. And less hugging. Did we like it? Do we think that you will like it? Here's all of our unfiltered, unstructured thoughts in all of their ADHD glory. This is episode 1 of The Casual Critique. Let's break it down. Brad Pitt's character in this movie. First of all, I love the setup for Brad Pitt's character. I think Brad Pitt does a fantastic job. Javier Bardem did a phenomenal job in his role. One thing that I thought was really interesting was if this was a season of Drive to Survive and we were following Lewis Hamilton, this exact same scenario were taking place, but the cameras were following Lewis Hamilton, you would hate Sonny Hayes. You would despise Brad Pitt's character. If the cameras were following Lewis Hamilton, you would hate Sonny and the stuff that he was doing. But since we're following him and we like we are emotionally attached to the character, we're like, yes, do this. But
dude, he pissed me off. I can't tell you how many times I would like elbow Jason and go, really? Dude, what's he doing? Right in the movie. I'm like, dude, what's he doing? That was all him. Why did he do that?
The director, like we said, absolutely phenomenal job. So he did Top Gun Maverick, and Top Gun Maverick was absolutely great. They were in these planes. It was shot in a way that you felt like you were in these situations, and he brought that exact same thing to F1. I've never felt, even like something like Gone in 60 Seconds or things like that, I still never felt more connected to the vehicles. So he does a great job. He did it in Top Gun Maverick. He's done it here, where he teases you and makes you believe that you are running headlong into a trope.
Yeah.
Only to take that trope away from you and then give it back to you in a way that you did not anticipate that it would be. So his ability to play with your expectations and then subvert those expectations, but do so in a way that still feels good instead of the typical thing that they like to do when they subvert expectations. And that's usually just code for, we planned to disappoint you. Where I think he's shown himself to be very adept with that, and to not push the audience too far or try to like take something away from them to the point that it angers them. It's this, he plays cat and mouse with the audience. And we'll get into more of that in the spoiler stuff, because it's such a crazy cat and mouse game that he does with the audience throughout the course of this movie.
I couldn't have said it better myself than you said it, but I can tell you for a fact there was a couple of times in the movie where I was like, okay, this happened, so now this is going to happen. And that did not happen. And I went, oh.
Yeah, and it was like very clear. It wasn't just a thing where you're just like assuming that because of the tropes. He is blatantly baiting the audience to believe that that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He is 100% trying to get you to think that, just to do the move where it's like, nope, not what you're getting. It's not the story I thought we would get.
It wasn't for me either.
If you're enjoying this breakdown of Brad Pitt pretending to be Lewis Hamilton's dad, go ahead and bring it in, Pitt, for a like. While you're there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button like it cut you off on turn 1. That is also a thing that happens in this movie. We do this every week. Games, movies, the occasional existential spiral. You'll fit right in. I thought, like a typical movie where it revolves around racing or cars or something like that, I thought that we would be able to say more about it without spoiling things. But because of the way that the story goes and the story that they're actually trying to tell, there's really not a lot that we can say without spoiling aspects of it.
There's not. One of the things I want to say too is hats off to Kosinski and Bruckheimer and Lewis Hamilton, who basically put this thing together, for using all, with the exception of 2, all real world F1 personalities in this excellent movie.
Again, Brad Pitt, Javier Bardem did phenomenal jobs. So Brad Pitt is obviously the retired driver that gets pulled back in, and it's because Javier's character needs him, and he woos him back in to the racing world, and then they go about telling this story. Brad Pitt is trying to bail out a former friend. He's there to help a friend. So there's the aspect of he was somebody, now he's a nobody. Then there's the aspect of him trying to help his friend. There's the whole situation of what kind of situation is his friend in, and what are the machinations that are pressing that forward.
And then the rookie diva driver that they need to bring along and teach him how to play team sports.
One thing that it does so well, and again, this is coming from somebody that is not familiar with F1, other than a couple of things I've seen regarding to like some qualifying in races and a little bit of Drive to Survive. They show so well how everything matters. How one little mistake can lead to an absolute avalanche of errors as a result. It is the butterfly effect put into motion whenever they have this. And they do a great job of highlighting all these different roles that you either rarely see, don't think a lot of, or didn't even know existed here. And you see them all working together, whether well or poorly, at different aspects of these various races. And it's really sort of mesmerizing, and it lets you see this race as a team sport, which it doesn't really get highlighted that way before.
Right.
And so it's like watching a basketball game or a documentary about like Jordan's Last Dance, and that whole thing on Netflix. It's this thing about where you can see what happens whenever a team meshes well, and you can see what happens whenever a team is mismatched or not aligned. And I think they did a great job of that, at highlighting the team and showing that these drivers are prominent roles in the team, but they are not the end all be all.
If you're an F1 purist and you're like, hey, I've heard there's some stuff in it that's not exactly Formula One or what Formula One can or can't do. Yes, that's true. But I think you will see, if you allow yourself to have an open mind, that it drives the narrative instead of hinders it. And I think for your standard person, even your standard person that loves Formula One but doesn't love Formula One, like they watch races, but that's all they do. They don't really get into the nitty gritty of tires and pit stops and rules and all that business. It's a great show and you need to go see it.
I know nothing, and I could not recommend this movie more highly. If you are seeking action and like adrenaline, you will get it. If you want to feel like you are connected to the car, you will get that in a way that you have not gotten in, I dare say, any movie prior to this. And if you are looking for a heartfelt human drama about either a guy that was there and he's trying to recapture it, or a friend helping out a friend in need, or the cocky guy that needs to be brought down a bit, all that is there, and it's blended together masterfully. I could not recommend this movie more highly.
Well, dude, you ready to get into some spoilers?
I am.
And folks, listen, I'm not playing around with this spoiler tag for this. This is going to be massive spoilers. You've been warned.
We open up with Brad Pitt and where he's at now. And so we find out basically that, yes, he is retired from F1, but he is not retired from racing. He is essentially a nomad.
He's a merc.
He literally looks in classified ads for people that are looking for drivers, goes, nukes the whole thing, wins it, gets his payday, walks out, never wants to touch the trophy.
And if you wanted to know, that is a real job. That really happens more than you would think.
You find out about Brad Pitt, and a thing that he keeps throwing out numerous times throughout the course of the film is it's not about the money.
Right.
He's chasing a dragon, and they talk about this dragon that he's chasing throughout the film. But it's basically the sensation of flying, where he's at peace. And he mentions that every once in a while, it's very rare, but every once in a while he gets there. And whenever it's there, that's worth chasing. And so he spends his entire life chasing that feeling.
It's the perfect lap, and you rarely find it. And when you do, I feel like Brad Pitt's on the search for that. We start out at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and he's in that Porsche, and he's coming off of his sleep session, which I thought was that they showed that mechanic in a Formula One movie was great, where he's coming off of that that session, and he's like, I've got to get in the car, and he's like, shit, we had the lead before I went to sleep, and now we don't. And then later he tells the guy that gets back in the car, if you lose my lead, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, and I think they even told him, like, whenever we went out there, like, hey, just don't fall further back or something like that. And then he was just like, nope, I'm getting it back,
Yeah.
and he just goes, and the guy tells him, like, hey, let him do his thing. Yeah, that was great. That was our first introduction to Brad Pitt's character. I think it did a great job. And then we find him later looking through the classified. So once he wins, ultimately
Yes.
they win, and then he just like pieces out. He doesn't want to
I'll
touch
take
the
my bonus
trophy.
check. I'm good.
Yeah, he just wants the check. Give me the check. I don't want to touch
Yep.
the trophy. Dude even offers him a watch, a job, everything. Just hey, anything. And they're like, nope, just want the check and I'm gone. And he's out. And then we basically get introduced to Javier's character. He shows up where Brad Pitt's character is, Sonny Hayes. We find out that they used to race together. Javier's character, Ruben, is basically in trouble. He is the part owner of this team, and they're the worst team in F1. He's gotten no wins. They've got no points. And they're basically at a point where if they don't pull something together soon, they're going to be forced to sell the team, and he's not going to have a job anymore. So whenever Brad Pitt asked him, like, how deep in trouble are you? He tells him $315 million.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to tell you, I couldn't believe that when I heard that number. I was like, wow, that just goes to the danger that is the Formula One challenge. Now, I don't know how he owned the team. I'm assuming he was pretty successful when he was a driver, which we really never got into.
There was a lot of this that was implied
Yeah.
that they never explicitly stated.
We know that even though they're friends, there's some stink from Monaco somewhere because they keep talking about this Monaco revenge thing. Anyway, we know there was some stink with them, but they're still really tight bros. And that
their relationship actually, which is funny because it's the same director.
Yeah.
Of Maverick and Iceman in Top Gun Maverick, where they've
Yes.
now established respect, and now they're super close. But there's always that thing about who was better.
I really felt attuned with what they were going through, even though they didn't really get into it. I wish they had. I want to know what happened at Monaco that caused this problem.
Well, that is one thing. Is this movie was very clearly a one-off. Like,
Yes.
I don't anticipate there being a sequel to this or anything like that. But there's so much more I want to know about so many characters here. Basically, Brad Pitt's character, Sonny, is offered this opportunity to get back into F1, and he doesn't want to do it, but he takes it because it gets him back in the chair, and he's going to help his friend.
Yeah.
And so he shows up, and now he's the old guy. And then obviously this whole thing about Ruben being very close to being out of a job is not a secret. This is what everybody's talking about, all of the media. This is not some behind the scenes thing. And then this move just seemed even more desperate whenever this move gets out that he, they've hired this guy. But before all that gets out, he shows up. So they're at the track. He meets the team. He's this old guy. This is the first time where they did this great multiple times where they set up your expectations and then they did the other thing, and that was Brad Pitt showing up. And JP is the young hothead driver. So they've got this thing here, and basically he's going to do a lap, and he's already said, like, yeah, get me set up. I'm gonna beat his time. And so in most movies, Brad Pitt would jump in there, especially after what we just seen with him winning the race.
Right.
Brad Pitt's going to jump in there, and he's going to do it, walk off and walk against the wind, smoke billows out, and he just goes and, has a coffee or whatever. And that doesn't happen. You're all ready for that to go on, and he doesn't go very far. I think it's like the first turn, and he spins out.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay. But then it's like, okay, well, he gets back in, and he's going again. He's going. They have a laugh about it. They talk back and forth, over the headset, over the comms. Goes again. You start seeing him. Oh, he's picking up speed. They're tracking him, his pace through these different checkpoints, and he's gaining. He's doing great. He's doing this, doing that, and you're thinking again. He's okay. So he had the little thing, and now it's gonna be the thing where he's gonna be the old guy. He's gonna show that he's still got it, and he just destroys this car.
Yeah.
Crashes, spins out, crashes right into the wall, absolutely destroys this car worth God only knows how many millions of dollars have been invested into this vehicle, and it's totaled. And so that's the first time that they sort of subvert your expectations, and then where you're just kind of like you now are in this state of like not really knowing what is in store, because you just saw this dude spin out, crash his vehicle, and now everybody else on the team is also like, we also find out that he was actually number 9. He was actually Ruben's 9th choice to come onto the team.
It's super hyper realistic what Ruben's going through. We see in the course of a regular F1 season, we'll see 2 or 3 team bosses just, hey, so-and-so's leaving the team with immediate effect, because these boards are the sponsors. And they're like, hey, man, we need you to do this exact thing every week. And if you don't do it, man, you're out. You're going to get voted out. So that part was hyper realistic. Reaching for a drop in a bucket like Sonny Hayes in the middle of a season or towards the end of a season, also super realistic. We saw it last year. Him doing his test to see if he was going to be able to drive that car, also very realistic. So all of these things heading into this, other than his age, and I know Ruben's Javier Bardem's character does a thing where he's like, so-and-so
I thought
won
that was a great
Monaco at
scene.
57 years old. Yeah, that's true.
Well, then Brad Pitt even said, like, you Googled those names, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was in the 50s when there was only like 5 races a season.
And you didn't have like 18 screens on your steering wheel telling you the status of all your sensors.
You don't have a 24 race season that's just going to absolutely murder your body at 57 years old. While that part was sort of unrealistic, reaching in the bag to pull out something to try to catch and win the season or just get some points, those were all realistic. The other piece was they had not scored a point that season. And
that was one thing. They had 9 races left.
Right now, they've got zero money that they're going to be getting at the end of the season when this movie starts.
And as you go through this whole thing, you see the name of the team is Apex GP.
Correct.
And you see these facilities, and I'm sure this is exactly what it is in these places, but I cannot fathom the hundreds of millions of dollars poured into these facilities. It is insane. This is going to kind of be a little bit ADHD, just because it's a thread that's weaved through the movie that I wanted to touch on, talking about subverting expectations, because this is what I really loved. Like we just said, the whole setup is they've got no points, they've got no money coming, they have 9 races left. They bring in Sonny Hayes, and he's got to kind of like turn this ship around, so to speak. Well, as they go through and they have these ups and these downs, and they keep making you think, oh, this is going to be the one where they break through, and then something goes wrong. And then they have another one like, oh, this is going to be the one that breaks through, and then something goes wrong. And things continue to go wrong. And you're like, we've only got 9 races. How are they going to win the whole thing? I realized that the agreement, the whole point, was never to win the whole thing. I completely didn't even realize. I had convinced myself that the idea was to, because that was never expressed. The whole thing, whenever Ruben went to Sonny to begin with, he's just like, we just need to get something going. We just need to save this. It was never about winning the entire thing. So that was one where it's like, this director like masterfully set this up where you think they have to win the whole thing. So every time he puts you in this thing and he gets you hyped for this race, and then he takes it away from you, it becomes this thing where you're like, oh my gosh. Well, and it creates this tension each race, because you're like, well, I don't, how can they even do it? Their backs against the wall. And it was never about that. It was just about getting just enough points that they can't force the sale.
The fact that Joshua Pierce and the team was kind of like, we're just trying to get a point. And Sonny's first thought is, we need to win a race. We need to get max points one weekend out of 9. Max points, which is 25 points. That's what his goal was for the entire 9 races. It took Josh Pierce 8 races to figure that out.
And this was another thing where, once again, kind of subverted expectations. You expected Brad Pitt to come in and be this thing, like this miracle worker. And so we have that introduction in the practice lap, goes south, and it's like, okay, well, he'll rebound, And then so the first race, we get into the first race, and
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, we see that, first of all, the car is subpar. It is referred to multiple times, quote unquote, as a shitbox.
Yeah.
And the car is subpar, and he's like, well, we can't win with this. He goes in there, and immediately we see that this is one thing that I was very curious about with Jay. So this is the thing, because I had no idea. What you think you're going to see is that Sonny is just going to like run these things. He's going to be a phenom. He's going to be hell on wheels. And that's not it. Sonny is taking the rule book and looking for ideas in it.
Yeah.
This is so rule heavy. It seems like so many rules. He's like, how can we use this rule to our advantage?
Yeah.
And so that is the actual strategy every single time. And so I'm curious, all of these rules, is this how all these the rules would go from? I mean, there are rules about passing, following, the debris, tires, when all these things. Were there any of these things that stuck out as being inaccurate, or was this all like, could this theoretically happen?
Okay, so yes and no on all those questions you just said. So I'm going to go through it. The strategy piece, there are teams out there that know they're not the fastest, but that know with a certain confluence of events that occur during a race, if they do certain things, they can finish higher than they were expected to finish. And there's no better driver at this than Fernando Alonso in real life. And if he sees his teammate up ahead and he has no chance of getting up there, he will hold up the rest of the field because he is excellent at backing up a field. And he'll have that whole field behind him so that his teammate, who's built up a gap of probably 20 or 30 seconds, can go around the track and pit and get back out before he even gets there. So that, what we saw in the movie when that happened, when Brad Pitt held up the entire field so that Pierce could get in there and get pitted and get out, that was absolutely realistic. Now, that first race, well, no, not the first race. The first race, they wrecked each other out.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I couldn't have been more pissed off at Brad Pitt if I had tried. That was absolutely 100%
there were so many
his fault.
times that I was frustrated with both of them, numerous times.
So that was 100% his fault. But after that, we find out that he did it on purpose because he's trying to teach this kid, you're either driving this car and you're trying to get ahead, or you're just a guy doing laps around a track. And that's what he was trying to show him. So still his fault, though.
Well, because we also learned that this kid is basically trying to shop himself to other teams.
Yes, which that pissed me off too. But it's highly realistic. It happens all the time with a lot of the younger guys. The move where in the second race where he starts taking off everybody's stabilizer fin on their front wing to cause a caution, that'll work once. You can do that once. If you do it a second, especially the exact same move, I mean, at least change your move up. The FIA or the stewards are the guys that are the judges. They will catch on to you pretty fast, especially now. Nobody will be allowed to do that now because of the movie, which is crazy. There'll be all kinds of shit that comes out of this movie that'll never be allowed to be done again. Yeah, you'll get your whole team DQ'd for that.
So this is another one that I was curious about, where they were timing their pit stops or their pit stop exits just so that they could come out right in front of somebody.
Yeah, that shit happens all the time. That's absolute, and that'll never be outlawed. That's considered totally legal strategy.
So this was one of those things, like I said, this is why if the movie was following Lewis Hamilton or something like that, and all these people were showing up as side characters in the race that he was going, you were following him, you would hate this team. You would hate this team.
Yeah.
You were like, they're playing dirty. They're playing dirty.
Dude, they all play dirty.
But it's Brad Pitt, and you love to say, and you love what he's doing for Ruben, and so you cheer it on. But it was funny how many, like, that was just the thing. They would just figure out rules to break, and I thought that was a really interesting thing. But that's not to say that that's Brad Pitt's only trick or Sonny Hayes' only trick. He's very smart. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he does have a phenomenal eye for this. In fact, one of the big story beats of this whole thing is this big wreck that happens to Joshua. And it's because there was a race. He could have won the race. And Sonny was going to step aside, put his ego aside, and let him win the race for the team, for Ruben's job. And
he even said it. Sonny said, go ahead and win it, kid. And he moved over.
Yeah, and he told him, take it in, or he told the team to tell him to wait until the straight after turn one.
Yes.
And he saw what he thought was an opening on on 11 and went over, hit an obstacle, and crashed. Horrific crash. Survives. But and then that whole thing where one, we knew his mom was upset at Sonny Hayes, so there was that whole aspect, and he didn't want to tell his mom, like, actually, that was my fault. I did that.
Yeah.
But even with him knowing that, I thought he would be thankful that Sonny saved his life.
I did too.
But
That
instead,
shocked me. He hated it.
he was so certain that he could have had that.
Yeah.
He refused to listen to Sonny, and he even after it went wrong, he still refused to think that Sonny was right. He was still that arrogant, and that's a big story beat that goes through a large part. I thought that was going to be the turning point. Instead, that was just another obstacle for the team to deal with. Yet another trope that you were sort of baited with.
Yeah.
That turned out, and it's not until he runs the simulation and he does it over and over and over and over and over, and he never passes on turn 11. He can never make it work. And then he tries one time in the simulation to do what Sonny told him to do, and he won.
Yeah, and he literally stopped, and he was like, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, Jason's just as big a fan as I am at this point. And we both, when Sonny was like, wait for the straight, when Sonny said that in the movie, we both were like, dude, you don't pass on the outside of turn 1 at Monza. What the fuck are you doing? And sure enough, he goes flying. And then that brings up you brought up a really solid point, his wreck. So apparently, and I watched some interviews with Kosinski and Pitt, they wanted to have they knew they wanted to have at least 2 big incidents, crashes. Sonny's crash that ended his career the first time when he was young, that's a real crash. They just put his name in it instead of Martin Donnelly, the guy that actually had that crash, where he literally got thrown from the car and he was laying on the track. Pierce's crash that you just alluded to, where he went flying through the air and the car caught fire. I don't want to ruin it for you, but that's season 3, episode 9 of Drive to Survive.
Oh, wow. The whole theater, like you felt the oxygen get sucked out of it.
Really?
Right. Everybody felt, there was nothing. It was so dead silent when that happened. One thing that I want to touch on as well, the pit crew and all of that. There were so many, like the girl that's on the pit crew. There's so many interesting little character moments, even for small characters, where after, I think it was the first race, that they came out and Joshua was upset with her. Well, he was just upset because she had dropped a bolt gun. She accidentally dropped it and he ran over it as he was leaving the pit lane. And so he came back and he was upset with her and upset because of the way that everything turned out. He yelled at her, and then Brad Pitt's character is like, hey, Jody, don't worry about it. And whatever, and then went on about it. And then he later sees her, like she comes across him. He's in an ice bath and chilling out, and she's doing some stuff like getting things ready. They have this moment where they're talking about it and basically lets her know, hey, don't worry about it. Things happen. And she's like, yeah, I appreciate that, but don't let it happen again. That was a cool thing where she was like, yeah, she basically makes the point, which is valid, that you giving me that grace made me look weak. It looked like I needed somebody's pity.
In a world where there's not very many women on the pit wall, man. So yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Yeah, whenever she said that, I was like, that I get it. Whenever she was like, you don't expect her to say it because it sets this thing up to be this really like friendly, like, oh yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. And then she's like, don't let it happen again. Yeah,
but on her way out too, he said a great line because he said, don't worry about all this shit. Don't let it get to you. The world will take care of that. Don't worry about it on your own.
Yeah, plenty of people will do that for you.
Yeah, they'll do it for you. And she was like, thanks. And she walked out. So that was an excellent moment in the film. And I loved her, the way she pulled herself up by her bootstraps. Because every pit stop after that, she's like, she had that gun up and she's like, all right, folks, let's do this. 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, there's a lot of little like story beats that are just really great. These little things. Ultimately, it was a great film, and it all comes down to the culmination of the whole thing, where the ultimate subplot was basically this forced sale, and Ruben being forced out was kind of the plan. The board had essentially given the thumbs up to Brad Pitt's character taking over because they thought that would be a surefire way to let them lose.
But hey, it's not about the money.
Yeah, and then we find like there was some treachery afoot, some people trying to sabotage them through ways, and then ultimately it all came down to like the full circle thing of, you know, Brad Pitt was basically offered the team. He was offered the spot to manage the team, and he chose his friend, chose Ruben, because it was never about the money.
And, you know, you're not going to ask me this question because you're probably going to think it's just a movie beat, but it showed two definite dirty sides to Formula One. Every time somebody comes out of the woodwork with a miracle upgrade that makes their car better, somebody else from another team will walk around and look at that car and then file a complaint, which forces the FIA to investigate that car, and they'll almost always lose that upgrade package and have to go back to the shit box they were driving before. And then the other piece that the movie showed, I think, super well, that doesn't even get enough credit in the real world, is these agents that are so hell-bent for leather on getting these guys up on their social media. What Brad Pitt called the noise.
See, I expected that guy to get fired. He was clearly a toxic influence.
Yes.
I expected him to just be let go, but I guess he's family to this guy, because he was calling his mom Auntie. So I guess he was probably family, but I was like, this guy is clearly a toxic influence on him.
And it's funny, man, when you watch these guys walk around at a real race, I'm not talking about, you'll see it in Drive to Survive for sure, and you'll actually hear it. But in a real race, you can't hear it, but you can see it happen. You'll see the younger guys walking through the paddock, and somebody, girl, guy, in their face showing them a phone, and they're like, yeah, look like the older guys. You'll see them walking 4 or 5 feet in front of that person, and that person trying to get to them with the phone, and they're just ignoring them.
Just like, nope, don't want it.
And you know, it shows exactly what the movie showed. Brad Pitt was like, I could give a shit. Dude, put your phone down. It's just noise. And when he grasped that, like that time he came into the paddock and pulled out the socks for everybody to go running, and he had never done that. He'd watched Brad Pitt do it a million times. Or when he picked up the tennis balls off of the platform in the gym, and he was doing all this high-tech stuff, you know, the rhythm board and the treadmill, and then he turned it into an all-natural, I'm going to bounce some tennis balls around and I'm going to run.
I mean, it was a really great growth for everybody. By the end of it, Joshua essentially sacrifices himself in the last race. He and lets Sonny win it. So the whole thing was like, Sonny was like, go, just win it. And he was like, nope. And he actually sacrificed his potential to win for the betterment of the team, because he's like, I don't think I can catch this guy, but I can take him out. And so he actually put his team ahead of his own profile and took this guy out, sacrificed his own vehicle, and then Sonny got the win. So one, you got the growth on Joshua's side, and then Sonny got this win that you had sort of now been conditioned to believe would not happen, that it would be Sonny facilitating Joshua's win.
But I think once Josh saw that Sonny was willing to make the sacrifice.
Well, yeah, and he sort of builds respect and understanding of Sonny at multiple, like, it tears up, like he levels up periodically. Like they first have this thing where they don't get along, and then you see him look up the wreck that Sonny was in previously, and then he's like, okay, he's been through some stuff, and he sort of has this level of respect for him that he doesn't show him. He doesn't actually show him respect, but you know that he has gained a level of respect for what he did and what he's been through, and the fact that he's still back and doing it.
Well, it's like when he was talking to his mom, and she's like, what about this new driver? He's like, he's old and he's an asshole, but he's quick though.
Yeah. Then, you know, he just kind of keeps going up in levels. And then Brad Pitt's character, you know, he kind of goes through this whole phase, this evolution as well. And he meets the girl, the wind technician or whatever.
We need to talk about that too, because other than like any other movie where once a romance plot is introduced, it feels like the whole movie turns into that. This movie did a good job of keeping that subdued and believable, because here's a girl in an absolutely male-dominated position. There's only one female on the entire grid in real life, Hannah Schmidt for Red Bull, that is a sporting director, and she's a genius, and I'm betting that Carrie Condon's character was based on her.
Also love the Irish accent.
Yeah, and she's I love the way they wrote her character. That whole scene at the pub, them two sharing a beer, and she's like, okay, so you're a straight shooter and you know bullshit, and she's like, you know, there's a lot of people out there said that it's not that you're a has-been, it's that you're a never was. And he's like, I meant I'm a straight shooter. I like it better when you guys heap praise on me.
Yeah, I prefer praise and hero worship.
Hero worship. Yeah. I thought that was great. It was organic. And even their scene where they ended up getting down, you knew it was going to happen after the poker game, which was great, where she's like, look, like literally right after Pierce left the table. And she's like, I don't shit where I eat, basically. And then, of course, she ends up shitting where she eats. But it was still very well done. It was tasteful.
It is 1 a.m.
Yeah, man, I've got to go to bed. I got to be at work.
The southern of America.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much. But yeah, in closing, though, this movie was phenomenal. I could not recommend it more highly. Whether you are into interpersonal drama, the action of a race, in any of these particular things that it might touch on, this hits it all. They did a phenomenal job. The guy that did Top Gun Maverick did the exact same thing here. Just told a phenomenal story with across multiple generations. It was great. I didn't know what to expect, but it certainly wasn't this. And this is better than anything I could have fathomed.
I'm hoping you'll pick up your Drive to Survive journey a little bit more. I'm hoping the movie introduces a whole new group of people of fans to Formula One. Also, F125, the game, back to our game stuff, has the movie content built into it. And if you pick F1 the movie from the main menu, your first piece of it is that test day at Silverstone, which, for the record, I didn't wreck. I nailed it. They still made me wreck the car at the end because it actually interlaces the movie with the gameplay, which is unbelievably good. And on the 30th, they're going to release all the other episodes. So I'm pretty happy about playing that.
Well, like I said, one thing, this is very clearly a one-off. I do not anticipate there to be a sequel. However, I was not familiar with the work of Joseph Kosinski until Top Gun Maverick. I was so impressed with Top Gun Maverick. And now he has done it again with this. This guy is going to be a director that I will start to follow. He's going to be one of the very few directors where I hear that he is in a movie. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever the movie is, whatever it's about, I'm going to check it out. Because if he's behind it, chances are I'm going to be interested.
Pirates of the Caribbean 6 by Joseph Kosinski. Yes, now I know what it'd feel like to actually be on the pirate ship.
Yeah, man. So I am just so impressed with what he's able to do, the stories he's able to tell, and just how he is able to make you feel all of the things that the car is going through, that the drivers are going through. He's got some way of just kinetic storytelling that is unmatched.
Kinetic storytelling. That's a brilliant way to look at it. I wish he would get the Star Wars Starfighter.
That would be sick. Disney, if you're listening, do this one for us.
Yeah,
please.
This guy.
Please. Tom Cruise didn't bring you this video, but if he did, he'd definitely tell you to like, subscribe, and watch this next video in IMAX. Or you can just hit the buttons and watch it on the screen that you're already on. That's fine too. You wouldn't want to disappoint Tom. I'll see you next time.